To fully appreciate Freud's idea, imagine locking a horny teenage boy, think id, a priest, superego, and an accountant, ego, in a room with a pornographic magazine. The teenager, representing the animalistic side, would jump on the magazine, while the priest would attempt to rip it out of his immoral grasp and dispose of it. The accountant would then face an uphill struggle, getting them to agree on the best way forward. Eventually, all three would calm down, discuss the issue, and perhaps decide that it would be best to pretend that the magazine didn't exist. That way, the teenager wouldn't be tempted to look at the naughty photographs, and the priest wouldn't have to lecture constantly about the importance of morality. Happy with the clever compromise, the three hide the magazine under the carpet and try to forget about it. Unfortunately, that is easier said than done. Day after day, the teenager would be tempted to take a peek, but every time he lifted the carpet, the priest would whack his finger. Eventually, the tension would build, making everyone feel more and more anxious. According to Freud, we are frequently caught up in struggles between our inner teenager and the priest, with one arguing for what we want to do and the other for what we ought to do. The teenager wants to have an extramarital affair, and the priest points out the importance of marriage vows. The teenager wants to strike out at someone who has upset him, and the priest votes in favour of forgiveness. The teenager wants to go ahead with a shady business deal, and the priest emphasises the need to be a good, law-abiding citizen. Most of the time, we end up pretending that these problems don't exist and try to bury them deep within the unconscious. However, the mental stress caused by having to keep our conceptual pornographic magazines hidden under the carpet builds and can eventually make us feel frustrated, anxious, and angry. Many psychologists have argued that the best solution is to release these repressed feelings in a safe and socially acceptable way. Punch a pillow, shout and scream, stamp your feet. Anything to calm down your inner teenager before he kicks in the door. This cathartic approach to anger management has gained wide acceptance. But was Freud correct? For several years, psychologists have examined the effects of putting people under stress and then encouraging them to shout and scream. A few years ago, Brad Bushman at Iowa State University carried out an experiment in which 600 students were asked to produce an essay describing their views on abortion. These essays were then taken away and allegedly given to another student for evaluation. In reality, the experimenters evaluated all of the essays themselves and made sure that the students received bad marks, negative feedback, and a handwritten note saying, "This is one of the worst essays I have read." Perhaps not surprisingly, the students were annoyed with the way their essays had been evaluated and were furious with the fictitious evaluator. Some of the students were then given the opportunity to get their aggressive feelings out of their system. They were given a pair of boxing gloves, shown a photograph of the person that had allegedly marked their essay, and told to think about the person while they hit a 70-pound punching bag. Although the students were left alone with the bag while venting their aggression, an intercom system allowed the experimenters to count secretly the number of times they hit the bag. In contrast, another group of students was not introduced to the boxing gloves and punching bag, but was asked instead to sit in a quiet room for 2 minutes. Afterward, everyone completed a standard mood questionnaire that measured, among other things, how angry, annoyed, and frustrated they felt. Finally, games were played between pairs, with the victor winning the right to administer a loud blast of noise in the face of the loser. The winner decided how long and how loud each blast would be, and a computer carefully recorded the choices. Did the people who punched the bag feel less aggressive than those who had sat quietly in the room? Did the punchers feel more inclined to generate louder blasts? Those who had donned the boxing gloves and punched as hard as they could felt far more aggressive afterward and administered longer and louder blasts of noise in the faces of their fellow participants. The results revealed large differences in the final mood and blasting behaviour between the two groups, and this pattern has been proven frequently. The venting of anger does not extinguish the flame. In fact, As Brad Bushman remarks in his paper, it is far more likely to pour gasoline onto the fire. If punching and screaming do not help to quell feelings of stress and frustration, what does? And what can be done to create a more relaxed view of life? Are lengthy anger management courses or hours of deep meditation the answer? In fact, there are some simple and fast solutions, which include being able to find benefits, doing nothing, and harnessing the positive power of a four-legged friend. In search of benefits. Everyone will experience negative events at some point in their lives. Perhaps you will contract an illness, have to face the breakup of a long-term relationship, discover that your partner has had an affair, or endure hurtful gossip spread about you by a close friend. Quite understandably, such events usually cause people to feel anxious, upset, and depressed. People often reflect on the past, wishing that things could be different. If another person is responsible for their suffering, thoughts might turn to revenge and retribution. Oftentimes, such experiences lead to feelings of anger, bitterness, and aggression. Given that putting on boxing gloves and hitting a punching bag is likely to make the situation worse rather than better, what is the best way of dealing with such emotions? One possibility is simply to behave in a way that is incompatible with being angry. Watch a funny film, go to a party, play with a puppy, or tackle a difficult crossword puzzle. Alternatively, you could distract yourself by exercising, creating an art project, or spending an evening with friends or family. However, although such behaviour may help reduce feelings of stress caused by relatively minor hassles, it is unlikely to provide a lasting solution to more serious sources of long-term frustration. The good news is that a more effective solution does not require lengthy sessions with a therapist or hours talking about the issues with those around you. It actually takes minutes, not months, and has been shown to help people who have lost their possessions in a fire, suffered bereavement, experienced a heart attack, been the victims of disaster, or been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. It is called benefit. Were asked to choose an incident in their lives in which hurt or offended them. From infidelity to insults, rejection to abandonment, the students all came up with something that had been eating away at them. 1/3 of the participants were then asked to spend a few minutes describing the event in detail, focusing on how angry they felt and how the experience had had a negative effect on their lives.